Have you ever felt like your weight loss struggle is your fault? Like if you were just more disciplined or more consistent, or if you had more willpower, that things would finally click for you? But what if the truth is a little bit more nuanced than that? What if weight loss isn't just about calories in and out or self control, but also about biology, hormones, inflammation, and the world we live in? In today's conversation, I'm joined by Dr. William Summers. He's a physician who specializes in medical weight management and metabolic health. He's been an OB-GYN for over 30 years in Birmingham, Alabama. And we're so happy to have him with us today to pick his brains. We're going to talk about the science of obesity, the role of nutrition, and the stigma and shame that so many women carry around their weight, and how medications like GLP ones can fit into the bigger picture of sustainable health for some people. This is a really important conversation, especially for women over 40 who are trying to understand their bodies, improve their health, and find more peace with food without tying their worth to the number on the scale. So, if you've ever felt confused, discouraged, or just sick and tired of being sick and tired on that dieting roller coaster, I think this episode is going to give you a lot to think about. Let's dive in. This is the Healthy Real Food Podcast. I'm your coach, Erin Hart, a registered nurse and health coach who understands the struggle of feeling out of control around food and has walked the path of transformation. If you are a woman who feels powerless against your cravings and is ready to live your life with more energy, mental clarity, and purpose, there is hope. Here we believe that with God, a mindset of unstoppability, and consistent execution of a winning strategy, anything is possible for you. So if you're ready to find freedom from food addiction, take control of your health, and pursue your dreams with renewed energy, support, and accountability, let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Healthy Real Food Podcast. We are so excited to have Dr. William Summers on the podcast with us today. Welcome, Dr. Summers.
Thank you. It's so glad to be here. Thank you, Erin.
Yes, and Dr. Summers is an OB-GYN. He specializes in obesity management, and I'm so excited to pick your brain. Dr. Summers, tell us a little bit about yourself, about the work that you do and how you help people.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm a practicing gynecologist in Birmingham for over 30 years. And there's an overlap over many years of when I became involved in obesity management. As I mentioned to you earlier, I've always said men gain weight and we don't like the weight. Women gain weight and they don't like themselves. And that is a double standard based in misogyny that needs to go away. So I get excited about it because I see the improvement in the quality of life improvement. That's our target. It's really about, because everybody's beautiful at any size and shape, but to maintain a higher quality of life, that's my goal. And to make everybody feel beautiful from day one till the very end. I think that focus needs to be straightforward.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's so challenging for women with our self-image and how we tie our weight to our worth.
And that would only be fair if men felt the same way. But we have this, I've mentioned that I see men and women and my patients who deal with obesity, and a husband may bring a wife in, a BMI of 40, and his wife has a BMI of 27, and he's bringing her in to be treated without even looking in the mirror. So I think we should normalize and make this all an equal opportunity.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
because we are basically all the same, and we all have variations that should be celebrated. But I do defend that when women really gain some weight, I see their lack of confidence, their social inhibitions, lack of sexual responsivity. So it's just unfair that women get to be targeted in this country as the magazine cover, so to speak, which is not real. So I'm a proponent of just normalizing that standard and removing any stigma for anybody with any disease, and especially the disease of obesity.
Oh, I totally agree. And yeah, it's so important to love yourself now. We
Oh,
don't have to hate ourselves to healthy. We can love ourselves to healthy and approach
100%.
our health goals from that point of love. breaking that tie from our worth and our weight. We're all children of God, and our worth is
Yeah.
is not tied to what we look like.
100%.
So it's really great having you on the podcast,
Well, thank
being someone you probably know a lot more about the research and the science behind a lot of the advancements in weight management recently. Love to just hear your perspective on where we are right now and what
Well,
we
this
can do
is
to help.
to put it in this simple form, and I guess to understand what the platform or the understanding that the disease of obesity, when we become overweight,
Mhm.
especially in our abdominal area, but when we become overweight, there are 200 diseases associated with becoming overweight because there are cells that live inside of our body right here in this abdominal area that are inside our body we didn't even know existed, much less even functioned. Mainstream, working normally, get affected and from inflammation to cancer risk to immunological diseases, on and on. So understanding that the weight that we get, once we get it, I'll say when somebody becomes overweight, I can measure, I say blood tests, but they're really neuroendocrine signaling, 4 chemicals in our body: glucagon-like peptide 1, GIP, glucose-dependent insulin-tropic polypeptide, glucagon, and amylin, which are messed up in our body. We didn't know that, and we have to eat. And when that stuff is messed up and we eat, then we gain weight unfairly. And as we gain more weight, these chemicals become more messed up. And so we're on this sort of cycle and frustration and what to do. So to know the pathophysiology of what's going on in our body, and more will come out. There's so much in the development of what we will understand, even more neuroendocrine signaling. But this is all in the last probably 10 years. This has become understood, overlapping with the research in type 2 diabetes. And they realized that there's such an overlap between the slope of gaining weight and get type 2 diabetes that so much of this sort of spawned from the researchers that were already into type 2 diabetes. But when we become overweight, things are messed up. We eat, we gain weight unfairly, and that's the point. And we can do something about that. And always, again, starting with nutrition, understanding the evils, the demons, and the things that we do eat that we've been told are okay, and they're not okay. And then often, and sometimes just like any other disease, there are medicines that are appropriate for that.
And food first, right? Like you said, there are so many things that we can do with diet changes and stuff,
Yeah,
but sometimes medications can be such a helpful tool
100%.
on your weight loss
I
journey.
mentioned 4, say, chemicals messed up.
Mm.
Semaglutide fixes one of those, GLP One. The better medicine, tirzepatide, fixes 2 of those, GLP One and GIP.
Mm.
Retatrutide, which we thought would be released this year, is going to be held back until next year. Will fix the 3 receptors, GLP One, GIP, and glucagon. And these are safe. And again, with any medicine, there's side effects and individual understandings. But I'm not one of these that everybody has to have a medicine. But when you have failed doing your focus for at least say 6 months and really trying to work on
Mhm.
managing this, then these are available and they're safer and they're just so different than what's been in our toolbox before the development of these medicines. It's not,
Right.
there's so that historically the weight management has been met with all types of issues with the fin-fins and the heart valve issues and the meridian, the arrhythmias, and everything seemed like a medicine would be approved and then immediately removed for some kind of serious adverse event. So it's always been historically just managed with stimulant medicines, which we know are on a short-term basis met with large weight return and after stopping those medicines. So just to educate the public, there is a pathophysiology, a disease when we get overweight, and medicines to target those and to understand those. Not that you have to take them, but to have an understanding.
Yeah. And what was the name of the third one
Re-
that you said is coming out next year?
Retatrutide, we call it triple G. Glucagon-like peptide 1 is a receptor when we eat a meal, our intestines release GLP One from the intestine right up to the brain and to the hypothalamus, and we feel full. The satiety hormone, GLP One. So every time we eat a meal, this chemical goes from our intestinal cells to the brain, and we stop eating because of that. When we become overweight, simply to say that drops a little bit, it gets low. So when we get overweight, we eat too long. And when this GLP-1 drops, the hormones that make fat in our body increase. So when we eat a meal with more fat-making hormone, then we're going to make more fat of that meal. Semaglutide is a Ozempic once-a-week injection, the same as Wegovy once a week. Eli Lilly, with their research, realized that GIP it's also an intestinal chemical that helps regulate our blood sugars. In addition to that's the whole point, is keeping our sugar regulated. So they added GLP-1 and GIP, glucose-dependent insulin-tropic polypeptide, made from the intestines and helps regulate blood sugar. And this just had much more significant results. And all we're doing is fixing something that's messed up anyway. And so you get full right away, and it works in several, the stomach and the brain, several places in our body. But just say my sugar is going to be regulated, then I have a chance to lose weight. Because when our sugar is not regulated and too high, that promotes fat-making hormones that store more fat than we should have. So GLP-1 GIP. Glucagon signaling is also messed up. So now they've added glucagon. So it's a triple receptor agonist, GLP-1 GIP, glucagon. They call it, nicknamed it, even the company Eli Lilly that makes it calls it triple G. And we will see that. Novo Nordisk, who has Ozempic, Wegovy, is adding amylin. They're a double receptor agonist, but if you look at the results, triple G will win. If you're just kind of doing the math here, the next appropriate would be to do the add all four, GLP-1, GIP, glucagon, and amylin to get the best result of restoring the natural physiology so that we have a chance to manage the unfair weight gain that we've had after commercialization and all the addition of the refined sugars and processed sugars and the corn syrups and the high density fructose corn syrups that are everywhere that we said were okay and they're not okay. And then we get overweight as a result of them, then we're just kind of a snowball getting bigger rolling down the hill because there are chemicals in our bodies that are affected and that we didn't know. And that we have the shame and blame, put your fork down, put your, all these things. And it's incredibly ignorant. And so just understanding the education of the disease, I think would be a great purpose. And then helping patients manage through individual medicines and side effects. The biggest problem, of course, with medicines, they're very expensive and currently not thoroughly covered by most patients' insurance. And they have cash pay prices, but they're expensive. And a big proponent of anything we do for weight loss, anything. If you do your health, like you lost your weight with all these health style changes, when you get to your goal, you got to keep on trucking for a while. For a while to maintain that because our body is genetically designed to gain weight. Historically, human survival based on weight gain. And we have so many pathways in our bodies that make it too easy, really too easy to gain weight. And anybody losing weight historically would be in a survival threat. So we have roadblocks losing weight. And you start to lose weight and everything slows down. So it's a challenge because we live as the first obese human generation, perfectly designed to gain weight easily and lose weight very difficult. So let me ask you a question. I know you like off the sugars, and I'm with you on that. I tell everybody, eat what you like, change it, but you have to like it so it can be sustained. But I give them boundaries and under 100 grams of carbs a day. And I break that down into I call them God-made sugars, the complex sugars, where sugars go into our blood slowly versus man-made sugars, the simple refined process that go in the blood way too fast. And sugar in the blood too much creates more fat. So it's just the design of how God made our sugars, and any fruits and grains and vegetables arrive into the bloodstream slowly from the intestine. It's controlled. They're actively transported from the intestine into the bloodstream. But the sugars we make, they go from the mouth just by bulk form and fashion, all in there all at once. And that we are dealing with that. And yet, if you count calories, the calories can be the same, but the blood sugar levels are not the same. I go all over the place here. I'm too passionate about all of it, but
Oh, I love it.
but
Yeah.
I do agree with the low sugar and the white flour, anything, even the grains that are refined, they're making those unhealthy. So your lifestyle changes, or I like the word health style better than lifestyle because it really puts it right to the principle of what we're focusing on, a health style. Because many lifestyles, we celebrate a lot of different lifestyles, but health styles involve all this, and then of course physical activity in building muscle, because muscle will control our metabolic rate. And it's a vicious cycle. When we lose fat, we lose muscle. So everything slows down. So to be aware of that. So I'm a big thing with 100 grams of carbs a day and a lot of protein. I say protein is our superhero for weight management. It's a satiety nutrition. You eat more protein, you stay satisfied longer, but it maintains our muscle mass. So our motor keeps going while we're taking less calories in.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly what we try to create here. I'm a registered nurse and I even felt confused just with all the diets out there. And they say to eat healthy, but like, how do I do that?
Right,
And then
right.
trying
Well,
to sustain that. But like what we tried to create in our program is we have a food exchange meal plan system to really help to bypass willpower. So when you have those strong boundaries with the processed foods that you don't have to constantly be negotiating with yourself about. And then we created these food exchange meal plan systems that are balanced in macronutrients. So we
that's
do
great.
30% protein, 40% carbohydrates, and 30% fat. So
Okay.
each meal and throughout the day are
I like that.
balanced that
Yeah.
way.
Traditional diets are like 50% carbs. So I like that you lower that a bit. And I think that we say when carb and sugar are used synonymously, but they are
Mm,
different. And it's really the
yeah,
sugar, the simple sugars that are really the demon of our weight gain. And then they were brought into our diets after World War II so that we'd buy more. I mean, they trigger that when we eat something with those sugars, we crave that. So there's a marketing, subliminal marketing tool with all that as well. And we, one of the biggest barriers in all of this is that we've been told what we're doing is okay for so long. We just have to break a habit. And the breaking habits is not easy. And with a focus, really intent focus can take 21 days up to a month of just not doing the same thing by habit, but just without even thinking about it.
right,
So,
right.
but I think you've seen the rewards of that. And sometimes it's a little bit slower to start and there's frustrations and you lose it and it comes back. That's our body kind of getting confused. Even if we're overweight, our body thinks we need to gain weight for survival. So, because we have not been overweight, but
Right.
and
And is it true that because what I heard is that when we lose weight, we don't actually lose fat cells, they just are shrinking. And
well,
so that's
it's
why it's so easy to put weight back on,
well,
if you
okay, we have fat cells under the skin and there's
Mhm.
fat cells inside our body in the peritoneal cavity. When we gain weight and put fat in the cell, we have a certain number, a finite number of cells under the skin. So we'll put they'll start to grow. We'll put some fat in it and it stops and we'll fill up another cell and they'll actually grow by hyperplasia. One becomes two, becomes four, becomes eight. And we can grow these out to a certain number, a finite number. So our belly's getting bigger. But the serious fat becomes when we put fat inside the cells inside of us. These cells are the ones I mentioned earlier, and they don't grow by hyperplasia. They grow by hypertrophy, which is why if you look in surgery, you open someone, it's all yellow because it's a cell that's really densely packed and enlarging. And those cells we thought were empty. In 1994, the dude found out and won the Nobel Prize. He found leptin. It's something that this empty cell that we're putting fat in for storage, he found leptin. And he won the Nobel Prize. And since 1994, we now know that those cells that we're filling with fat create 600 neuroendocrine substances to keep our body healthy in every way possible. And that we're just taking that cell and expanding it with goo, and the chemicals can't be released. So we have inflammation, immunological disorders, and cancer risk, and all types of endocrine dysfunction because of that. One, I think every doctor should be a nurse first for the compassionate side of medicine. And I don't know where you went to school, and I went to school in Tennessee, but we did not get a lot of education, none of us, in nutrition. That was just bypassed. So your physicians today, and they are doing great jobs. We have so little education about what we should and shouldn't eat. Internal medicine, my first year out of my medical school, we would just get a diabetic type 2 and say, go see the nutritionist. We didn't know we had no information to give them. So most doctors will avoid discussing nutrition only because we don't have a lot of information. I mean, I've been boarded in obesity medicine and feel so inept at really like what a nutritionist is, the only allied medical person who really learns nutrition. And maybe you have and taken that on as your focus and you've learned a lot more. But there's not a lot of courses that teach us basic what to put on the plate. And there are a lot of
Right.
programs, but I've always thought, whatever you do, you got to continue doing. So if we could teach you to eat what you like with boundaries, so you can
Mhm.
sustain it. It's so generic when I say that, but I do like the sugar guidelines and getting rid of the processed foods. We need government help with these labeling things that are supposed to be coming down the road. There's going to be some restrictions on the types of sugars, but we have 40% of our country is obese. 76% is overweight. So we needed, this is a bigger pandemic than COVID. It really is. More lives have been lost from obesity related diseases in the past year than they'd lost in any bad year of COVID. And that's a fact.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so sad. It's not just about I mean, it's about the diet-related diseases that we suffer from, but it's also just the time lost and all the mental energy that we waste on
Yeah.
riding this dieting roller coaster. It can eat up so much of our life that can be focused on the more important things. And that's kind of why I'm so passionate about
Yeah.
this is just the freedom, the peace that can come when
Yes.
we get our food in the right place, and it's not
Better. Feeling,
yeah,
feeling
and
good.
it doesn't have to be complicated either. I think what I've learned about nutrition is that it's pretty straightforward, right? Just eating food the way God made it in
That's
its
right.
like
Yeah.
least processed form
Oh,
and eating every food group in a healthy balance. But that putting that into practice can be really challenging. And
well,
that's why we created our meal plans and our
I
nutrition
like that.
app.
I think it's good because so many people ask me more. I recommend certain books. I'm not trying to ever endorse any particular program commercially. I can give evidence based which ones are more successful. But people do need a structure to help break habits, I guess. And designing those with expertise, I would be all for that. I'm all about. I call myself the TJ Maxx of weight loss, if I can say that, because I try to make everything
Mhm.
affordable in terms of people getting in and get out. Something
Yeah.
that really might be relevant to your audience. Most people may have seen this in the news that the current Congress has mandated that Medicare will be covering weight loss medicines as they were supposed to be in April. So anybody with obesity and that would qualify under considerations right now, Medicare would only cover, say, a medicine for weight loss if a person has had a previous heart attack or a stroke or known peripheral artery disease. The medicines are approved in different ones, like the one that tirzepatide is for sleep apnea. Doesn't mean insurance covers it, but it's a big deal for Medicare patients because the population of Medicare patients with obesity is higher than 40%. That the medicines that they would like to use, that they cannot afford, no one can, will be affordable at least between July and September at like $40 a month. So branded Zepbound will be covered by Medicare just for obesity management alone and not necessarily sleep apnea and Ozempic and Wegovy. Wegovy is covered for what used to be called fatty liver disease is now called metabolic associated steatohepatitis. It's the fatty liver turning into cirrhosis. I'd focus on the health and the disease associated because we think of cirrhosis. When I was a younger doctor, that was just somebody who drank too much alcohol. But now obesity has replaced alcohol as the number one cause of cirrhosis of the liver, which is like spiking up high because of obesity. People are just unaware. But medications for Medicare, now where that would help for anybody that's on Medicare for any reason, 65 or older, when Medicare CMS runs Medicare, and when Medicare makes demands within a year, typically we will see all commercial insured probably have to follow step and cover these medicines. So it's a good lead to at least have affordability for the medicines that are branded, because we could talk all day about compounds and what's been and what it could be. But I try to say evidence-based, and we know that our government watches the branded medicines and they are under patent and it's going to be more expensive for a while. But Medicare,
That is so exciting. That's huge.
yeah,
That is
it's
amazing for so many
$40.
people.
Right now, it would cost someone like $650 cash to pay, up to
Mhm.
1,000 on Medicare. It'd be $40 a month if they will do these medicines. And it's important because you don't use these for a month or two. If you start these medicines and lose weight, when I took my board of obesity exam many years ago, that there was a question: if somebody does anything to lose weight and they're there, how long do they have to do it to own that? In other words, our body's trying to show it can put it all back on really quickly with vengeance. So the answer was 2 years. Now, that's kind of stratified now. Harvard would follow if it takes you 6 months to get there doing something, you better do that something really solid for another 6 months. So just the point will be, we don't just get to the goal and go, "Oh, okay," and then go back to the patterns that brought us here in the first place. It will just come back too fast. And all you get is people blaming you, and then you blame yourself when your body's just doing what it does best.
Yeah, and the medications are a treatment, not a
Yeah.
cure, and so, like but that is such an exciting thing that will help so many people, and I like what you said earlier about, yeah, like, let's try the lifestyle changes first.
Right.
6 months of, like, really trying to dial in your nutrition, but, like, if you're really struggling, these medications can be helpful in decreasing your hunger and cravings, and it just
Well,
can make it easier to stick to the lifestyle changes.
you know,
But I don't think it's a replacement for them, right?
no, 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 right. No, it's not. But, it's like so many people that want a medicine and they're so expensive. And if you think about it, 76% of our country would potentially qualify for one of these injections, not just any of them, that run the insurance companies about $2,000 a month. And so you're kind of struggling. And I'll see certain commercial insured, like, we're going to cover weight loss. And after about a year, they can't afford it. So I've always thought that it would be sort of like in an ideal way for somebody to, instead of just saying, here's the medicine, let's see how you do, it would be great if there would be some type of interactive nutritional program that people could register into. interactive enough to involve them, to pay attention, to give everybody the basic education about nutrition. And using the medicines, and the efficacy would probably show much greater than somebody go, oh, my insurance covers it, let me just try it, without any really just background appropriate health style changes. So
Right.
so the algorithm would be, people work on their own, and then we could really get in all of us. I would sign up for that interactive program, somebody teaching me about nutrition, what's good and what's bad, and how to tell the difference. And maybe I need some more help, and a life coach could really, and all this is an accountability. The more you're involved. And so all this would be applicable, but then we have a serious subset of people that, if they're not successful at that point, should automatically be into eligibility for insurance coverage. It would be a doable, because these medicines treat a disease, and that's why we have insurance, to cover medicines that treat diseases.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that a lot of people, a lot of my clients that I work with, they are people that have been trying to lose weight on their own and they've been struggling. And I really tried, with my experience of losing over 100 pounds and coaching hundreds of people, doing thousands of coaching calls, I tried to create this ideal support system for people where we have this structured meal plan system that makes focused on maintaining weight loss with the ideal support system with buddies and mentors and the weekly
Yeah.
check-ins,
I think
mindset coaching.
support group is awesome with any issue. I mean, it's all good to have other people kind of dealing with what you're dealing with. Makes you just feel better, like you're just not just, this support is fantastic, and the accountability is more fantastic. So all being said, I think what you're doing is great. And it needs to be where somebody could just readily know to go to those things, because we have help. It's not because that we are failures. We have just been told what we were doing is okay for so long, and it's
Mhm.
not. It's all blurred into commercial marketing, because the things that we're talking about, we need to get rid of when they're in the foods that we are served. We will buy more of those foods. The corn syrups and the high density fructose corn syrups are in there because they show a response that people return and put that back in their buggy. So food and nutrition scientists help create the bad things in our food that seem to be okay at the time, the sugars and things, because when they're there, the people buy that brand again. And that just took off. After you look at the graphs after World War II, farm to table before World War II, back into as far as recorded history, obesity was about solid 10%. And we know there's probably at least that much in the genetic part of obesity, but from 10% to 40%, just skyrocketing. And it was the corn syrup and high density fructose corn syrup, 1973, that things just went blasting up. And we still are yet to really do much about that. High density fructose corn syrup, I like to say, it's illegal in most countries, a lot less modern countries than our own. And yet it's still in our foods, creating so much fat, liver disease, and in all the junk foods of kids, that all they do is want to put that little cupcake down and buy another one, because of the high density fructose corn syrup affects the mesolimbic part of the brain that triggers the reward. I want more. So
Mhm.
it kind of makes me mad sometimes when I look at the way we've evolved here, but it's not about finger pointing. I always say it's about pointing our finger in a different direction.
Mhm. Yeah, and a lot of we can have a lot of change that can happen just from eliminating or moderating those foods, but over time, if we do need more support, I've had some of my clients go on these GLP-1 medications, not in replacement of our lifestyle changes
Right,
that
right,
we're doing, but in as a tool to help them to be more consistent. So
right.
can you talk a little bit about the GLP-1 medications? And you talked about that they work on certain
Well, yeah.
receptors and how they work and what the risks are if
Mhm.
they do choose
Well,
to go that path.
okay. GLP-1, glucagon peptide 1, it is made in our intestine, and we use it in terms of our satiety goes to the brain to control hunger. It affects our upper GI stomach. It makes it empty slower. So when it empties slower, we maintain satiety longer, feel full longer. And the first GLP-1 that came out, it was recognized in type 2 diabetes, the sugars are elevated, that GLP-1 signaling was low. So now when we make this GLP-1 in our intestine, it goes to the brain and sits there on a button so we feel full. And then an enzyme called DPP4 eats it and it's gone. So they recognized way back with type 2 diabetes, the GLP-1 is off. It's also off when you're overweight, just not in type 2 diabetes. So they created a medicine called Januvia. And Januvia was a pill that a diabetic would take that would block the DPP4 enzyme. In other words, let's get it to the brain. Let's get this stuff working everywhere in the body, and outside the brain, then when GLP-1 is low, our sugar is regulation is off, okay, in terms of diabetes. So let's give you them Januvia and block that DPP-4 from eating it up. And that was great for diabetes. And so the GLP-1 hung up longer, it wasn't as low, and everybody helped diabetes, but it didn't really help so much with weight loss. No one knew why. But remember, in terms of weight, that has to get inside the brain. And we now know, the blood-brain barrier only lets small things in the brain. So exenatide came out. And exenatide was the first GLP-1 injection. It was used for type 2 diabetes called Byetta. It was a twice-a-day injection. And all of this weight loss came out. I mean, it's like, what's the deal? Well, it was a smaller molecule, and it got, instead of blocking the DP4, well, let's give you GLP-1. Let's don't just block it from getting eaten up. Let's give it to you. But it got into the brain, and all this weight loss followed, called Byetta. And that spawned the development of the overlap between type 2 diabetes and obesity. And here came liraglutide, a once-a-day injection, and they just did 2 different studies and named it Victoza and Saxenda. So it goes to the brain to make you feel full, and your stomach is emptying slower. I think those are the 2 main things. It works in several places in our body, but outside the brain to help regulate sugar in those receptors. But when you get full right away, you're definitely going to eat less. And then when your stomach is empty slower, you're going to feel longer. And the hormones that control all of this are sequestered in a way. And these have always been injections, and now they have a pill form, which we could talk about. But the point is, there's a disease, and when appropriate, there's medicines for it. And they can be safely used, and always looking out for any adverse events. And we would say with hypertension, if your blood pressure is like a 130 over 80 is normal, and you're 138 over 88, we might just say, cut the salt out for a while. Let's see how you do. Let's check it back in 4 to 6 months, and then add a medicine, not necessarily the first step. So there's guidelines we could do, like not salt, but a lot of nutritional things that got us here. Farm to table is always a good thing. But if people start asking me what to put on the plate, I'd have to probably call you, because I give guidelines, eat what you like with boundaries. What do you think about vitamin supplementations and all those things? Or is that in your system?
Yeah, our focus is more just the whole real food part
Yep.
of it, but we do, we did have a podcast recently about, for some women need folate, some women just calcium supplementation or then fish oil.
Yeah, fish oil is good for lowering triglycerides for cardiovascular risk. And we do have to have omega-3 and 6 fatty acids that our body don't make. So there's many layers to this, but it does start with nutrition focus and what we can do as a start.
I'd love to understand a little bit more about the risks associated for GLP-1s, like who's a good candidate, not a good
Okay.
candidate. I
Well,
know that a big concern is muscle loss, right? But like if you're eating enough protein and you're doing resistance training, that can be minimized, right?
yes, I get a little frustrated when I see some of these. I'll just use I just read it on the plane yesterday. Ozempic, they stopped it, and all the weight came back. If we do anything to lose weight and we stop that thing, our weight is going to come back. Anything you do, medicines or non-medicines, and you let up and you stop it, the weight's coming back. Weight loss is great, but you do have to continue to focus. Now, okay, you're asking me some of the adverse events, okay? Anybody that loses fat, you have to lose muscle. So if anybody is losing weight, going to lose muscle. When we eat sugar, it's in our blood, sugar gets converted to fat into our body. It's called lipogenesis, right? So we have too much fat. We made too much of that fat storage. So the only way that fat is going to come out is we have a calorie deficit, and the fat turns back into sugar. That's called gluconeogenesis. And so anybody whether you just exercise your way through it, or you've got this perfect diet, or you're using medicines, when you go fat to sugar, and we have to get it out of our body, that's our goal, then when you do gluconeogenesis, making sugar, we have to have amino acids, or that ain't going to happen. And amino acids live in our muscle. And muscle determines the primary determinant of our metabolic rate. So anybody losing fat is going to lose muscle. But when we lose fat, we lose muscle, which therein is a superhero protein, like 120 grams for women, 160 for men as just a base rule. And that keeps amino acids in our bloodstream, the macro that hangs out longer, so we can use those amino acids without breaking down muscle. There's sort of the magic to that little superhero. So I don't want to associate GLP-1 medicines with muscle loss any more than I would just say a much healthier diet with muscle loss. When you lose fat, you lose muscle, and when you lose muscle, we get in trouble. Our metabolic rate slows down, which triggers so much easier weight gain when we stop something, and blah, blah, blah. So do you lose weight, yes. And if you do, you lose muscle, and we can prevent and slow that down with more protein in our diet. But the main side effects really are the nausea is number one, constipation, diarrhea, vomiting number four, and mostly GI side effects. The serious adverse event of using any of these, when I say any of them, the GLP-1, the single receptor agonist, GLP double, tirzepatide, and the future triple G, the risk would be pancreatitis. These medicines work on the pancreas. And pancreatitis is like, super serious. People with pancreatitis is not like a arthritis of the elbow. This is like go to the ICU in most cases, 10% mortality with that. So we need to recognize the difference between the nausea associated with these medicines and the potential for anything more serious. And this could all be checked out with any symptoms with amylase and lipase, which I do very readily with anybody that just doesn't have a mild nausea, and stop these medicines really early. I would say, and I'll say it on our national podcast, that I've never had a patient in 13 years get pancreatitis because I have a low threshold for checking amylase and lipase. And I do research, phase 2 trials with 2 different companies on the medicines that we're talking about. And they will let your amylase and lipase go up 3 times normal. If I see it budge 1 point over normal, I stop the medicines in favor of patient safety, always first. So pancreatitis is the thing that is very rare, super rare. And I probably stopped maybe 10 people in 13 years that would have gotten it if I hadn't found it early. So it's a rare thing, but something everybody needs to be aware of. They were testing GLP One injections. Before they were out for us yet, they're doing animal studies, mice and rats. They gave them super, super high doses. And one strain of the mice and one strain of the rats got medullary thyroid cancer. Now, we think of thyroid cancer. It's not that. The medullary is the calcium part of our thyroid, the C cells and the calcium regulating part of the thyroid. Medullary is a rare, weird thyroid cancer that we don't really see or talk about much, but it's really serious. So one strain of mice, one strain of rats got medullary thyroid cancer. So the FDA said, we'll have to put, if you ever had medullary thyroid cancer, that's going to be an exclusion. It was in an animal study. And I looked this all the time. Post-marketing, we have not seen any increase in medullary thyroid cancer. It was high doses in one strain of mice and one strain of rats, but it's still an exclusion. So we honor that, and safety, and the FDA is in charge of that. So we play by those rules. The other rule they'll say on the TV commercial is medullary thyroid cancer. MEN2 syndrome, multiple endocrine neoplasia 2. They throw that out like everybody's heard of that before. If you ever had medullary thyroid cancer or MEN2 syndrome, and you're like, who even understands that on the Super Bowl commercial, but they say it. Multiple endocrine neoplasia. So it's redundant to say that. Medullary thyroid cancer seen in early animal studies, super high doses, is now an exclusion. So MEN2 is an exclusion because it had, and we have not seen any rise in that post-marketing. And so in any event that anybody's concerned, and everybody should be, about to take your own sort of you could always say, check my calcitonin level at the beginning and in 6 months. And that's a way to see if anything would show up that would concern you with medullary thyroid cancer. That's how it's checked with calcitonin levels. So it's not routine, but you could go in and say, I'm going to start these medicines. I'm a little bit worried. I want an amylase and lipase baseline. I'd like to check them again. And maybe 6 months after that, or just something to make anybody feel comfortable, because these are the safest medicines we've ever had. And even
Right.
penicillin, has, serious adverse events in a very few people, but you have to just be aware. I mean, that's our job to, not let
Mhm.
that stuff happen, I guess.
Yeah, but just the common side effects,
But,
nausea,
but
vomiting,
and also,
diarrhea.
and that's
Like,
not,
is there a reason that some people are more prone to get it while others aren't? Because
well,
I did not have any side effects at all
it,
when I
it,
took the medication, but I've had other people that have just gotten so
it,
sick from
well,
it.
when they do clinical trials and they get the dosing intervals all set up, and say for tirzepatide, 2.5 milligrams is starting dose. Somebody's receptors could be more, that 2.5 in you might be like a 10 in somebody else. If their receptor sensitivity, the way it binds and holds the receptor, and it also relates to the upper GI, slowing the stomach can really be great for satiety, but a little bit too much of that makes you feel nauseous and burping and stuff. So the point would be there's individual, they have to put these out commercially on population studies as they go up the titration. But if you came in and got an injection, I'm so nauseous, I'm going to stop that. Well, wait, we can go off label and adjust that dose to much lower. And we do that with the Ozempic pen. You dial to the 0.25, 19 clicks. Let's just dial you 4 clicks this week. And then, we can just so most of the side effects of nausea like that, I can't take that. We just need to make you a little bit your own little dosing thing. So because the off-label dosing is what it's called, and that can be done with any of these medicines, even in the commercially branded systems that they have, except for the pill.
And I don't know if there's any science behind this, but, like, I find the people that are eating a real food lifestyle, they seem to have less side effects than people that are eating more processed foods while they
I would just think that would make sense. I've never seen that, but I would agree with you if you said that's a fact. You go, yeah, that makes sense because it's our bodies, the way when we're eating healthier, then we are getting sort of what our body needs, and that these medicines don't have to do as much in our body. I mean, like in terms of, I think the whole thing with weight, I would say that the organ in our body that is going to be the boss of weight will be the pancreas. The pancreas is in charge of our weight with, and everything through the chemicals I mentioned, the glucagon, the amylins that come out, that, and the insulin goes up when we get overweight, and that makes more fat and stuff. So regulating blood sugars. And when you're eating, and so these medicines have to do more work when our blood sugar is not as regulated. And then when you're eating healthier, you're regulating your blood sugar the way it's supposed to be regulated through nutrition and sugar absorption through our small intestines and not our mouth into the bloodstream.
And you said what for maintenance, most people need to stay on the
Okay.
medication for life. Because 'cause I'm
No,
curious
well,
because, like, I was able to come off of it, and because I used it for my caloric deficit, but then when I went up on my meal plan up to a maintenance meal plan with more food, I just was able to kinda taper off the medication and come off of it. What are your thoughts about
right.
maintenance?
There are many people I've talked to that said you should be on these medicines forever. I do not agree with that. And I think I can quote when the last time I was in the Harvard team, they are the ones that kind of put me on the, if you do anything for 6 months, you better focus and do it for another 6 months. So I would tell patients, like, if you're going to do this and look at your goals, if all costs considered, if everything were just free and they're doing it safely, then do it as long as you can. Unless, this is true of any medicine, I don't care what medicine we're talking about, less is better, and a shorter time is better. Less medicine is always better. So if you get to your goal weight, it would be time to start maybe tapering back down, and eventually I would say try to get you off of it. And usually about 6 months, I'm kind of looking at people at least to maybe if they're on a higher dose, let's start going back down and see how you do. And if the food noise comes with the hunger and you see the recidivism, then we can go back up on the dose. But my goal would be to try to get everybody off the medicine at some point and not to tell anybody they should use the medicine the rest of their life. But I've seen that in print.
Yeah, I just have found from my experience and some of my clients, it's like when we came off of the medication, we get really hungry. But like, so it really helped to just be solid on a maintenance plan with more food and just coming off of it slowly.
Because ghrelin is the hormone made in our stomach that makes your stomach growl, ghrelin, and it's the hunger hormone. After we lose weight, it'll go up. The food noise is real. It's not just psychosomatic. And so the chemicals in our bodies that create, that's how, with slowing metabolism down, storing more fat, more food noise after we lose weight. That's how our hunters and gatherers survived a period of weight loss, because they could easily put the weight back on real quickly. And we're designed that same way. So how long do you have to own it before it's really just reset that system in our body? I don't think anybody knows for sure, but I think to have a goal to get off the medicine, and no one should get on it, I think, and say, I'll be on it the rest of my life. But
Mhm.
we need to get what you're saying, managing it with the right nutrition that we enjoy. This isn't like grabbing the sink and missing out on life. This is like feeling better every single day of your life because you're eating the things our body was designed to eat. And we are so used to getting that little bite of a Snickers bar with that little buzz of sugar energy that we equate with, followed by super high rise in insulin that makes us feel like crap. But once you get back into a system and eating things you like, and you find like you look forward to it, I can't wait till I haven't had dinner because I'm going to have this, but it's not going to put you back into this group of where we all started. A culturally induced obesity is what I call it.
Mhm. Yeah, and, I see people go on these medications without the lifestyle changes, just eating,
I see.
Cheetos and what
Well, yeah.
just, like, not eating a lot and not eating healthy or kind of, like, just a form of anorexia,
Well,
and that's not a healthy way to go about
no,
it
no.
either, so I
And
think just, like, making sure you're getting that healthy balance of nutrition is so important if you're gonna take
yeah,
these
well,
medications.
yeah, I have a lot of patients, and I've been a doctor for a while. So when I'm in Birmingham, I might be at a restaurant, and I never criticize anybody doing a single thing.
Yeah,
It's all about the moderation, and we're going to have the
yeah,
main day, but doesn't mean you can never have a bite of cake again. That doesn't mean
right.
you can't, like, you know what I mean? Like Confucius says, it doesn't matter how slowly you go as long as you don't stop. And some of us, the habits, and we get emotionally upset. I'm just going to go have that milkshake because it makes me feel better. I always say if somebody gets off of their targeted plan for a while, they probably just need a hug because You know, that-
Oh, for sure. A lot of people in
no,
our
no,
program practice the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule, and we
every,
totally support that.
every day I see somebody will come into the, when I'll be working a couple hours and they'll come in drinking a soda and there'll be chips in the purse. And I'm like, that's not good. I mean, I just, but but that's human behavior. And it's not, I don't ever criticize, but I try to encourage, just to like, that'd be better if we didn't do that.
It's been so helpful talking to you, Dr. Summers. I think our audience will get so much from this conversation and understanding a little bit about the science behind these medications that can be a tool on your weight loss journey.
Medicines, less is always better, but we have the number one killer in this country is cardiovascular disease and stroke. And these medicines have shown to lower that. So there's a risk benefit with any medicine, but everything in the past in history has always been, well, if I lose weight on these medicines, the heart risk. And now we have something that's good for the heart and helps us lose weight, and especially the abdominal girth weight. So I would say, women, measure your belly under 35 inches, the way we do it, stay under that and have your whole quality of health life. And everybody's beautiful and should own that to the start, 100%. We're all the
Oh,
same.
I totally agree. Dr. Summers, is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with? Anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I hope I said something that makes sense because I'm really passionate. I can tell you are about this whole topic. I wish I had individually could help anybody and everybody that would just listen to me talk, because I would like to just be the encourager. We're all God's creatures. We're all the same. We should be celebrating and try to manage things that we were told are okay that are not okay and make those changes. So,
Yes. And if someone wants to work with you or learn more from you, how can they?
well,
Uh,
Well, when I set up, I have a video series and it's called Weight Management, A Class with Act. And I ask my patients before they come in to watch those. They don't sell you anything. I would never know that they watch them. There are no ads. I'm not trying to make a dime off of that. I just try to help educate. So when my patients would watch those videos, I do go through the nutritional part. You could probably add a whole chapter to that, but just about the sugars and the types of sugars and the need for protein and all the medicines and side effects. I don't endorse anything. I don't want to have ads and sponsors. I just want to be the person that could help. And so I think my video series says about everything I would love for people to know. And they're 10 minutes. There's 8 of them. They're 10 minutes if they could be watched. But there's some particularly good ones, I think, about nutrition and medicines and the side effects and a little bit extra on that part of it. But I do appreciate you inviting me because if everybody listens, if I help one person, then it's made my day.
Thank you, Dr. Summers. How did they watch that video series?
There's a Google Drive on YouTube, like William Summers, MD. And I filmed these in October with a production company. I scripted everything. I mean, it's like, I'm just sitting there standing and talking, but they're 10 minutes, 8 of them.
Okay.
And
So on YouTube.
Weight Management, A Class with Act. And if anything, it does support that we're all beautiful. We're all God's creatures. This is a disease, another disease is as a doctor, I can help someone. That's the field. That's the paycheck.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Summers. It's so nice to meet you. And
Maybe we can talk again. I can tell we have a lot of passion here between the two of us.
yes, I would love to continue
Okay.
to learn from you, and we'd love to have you
I
back.
can learn from you too. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today. If you enjoyed this podcast, you're going to love my coaching program. If you're struggling and want to lose weight for the last time, I can help you. Just imagine living in your goal body and having peace with food. Your success is guaranteed. To learn more about how to get support, guidance, and accountability so you can find peace with food, achieve your goal body this year, and have more energy, visit www.healthyrealfood.com. While you're there, click the link to my schedule for a free one-to-one coaching call so we can get you started on your success path. You have the power to create the life that you want. This is the year of you. I'm cheering you on. Now go win the day. You got this.